So imagine you have a job that pays you minimum wage. If that is the case, is there any way for you to get into property? Can you somehow get that money together to be able to buy that first property? You're still gonna have to have a house, you have your bills, you have your mobile, you have all the expenses like everyone else. So with a minimum wage job, can you get into property? Today in this video, I'm gonna analyze a minimum wage for one person versus a couple, how much the tax is, what the expenses potentially are, how much can be saved realistically, and then I'll show you how possible or impossible it is to get into property on a minimum wage salary. So if it's interesting for you, stick around. I'm looking forward to this. So as always, I've already started the spreadsheet, so let's have a look. We're gonna have to change this slightly. What we need to have is minimum wage UK. Let's have a look. 11.44, so it's going up to 12.21 pounds. So if that's the case, let's put 12.21 pounds, minimum wage is what you earn. You then times that by, well, between 37 and 40 hours is normal full-time position, so let's just say 37.5 hours, that's what my contract is. And then times that by 52 weeks per year. So on a minimum wage, in a full-time position, your salary is £23,809.50. So that's your gross salary. Remember, in the UK, they love to tax you. It's a tax, it's a very important part of this country's economy. So let's take that salary and see, after you pay your pension, your national insurance and your tax, what you're actually left with. So 23,809. So now we're gonna do take home pay calculator. 23,809.50. Let's say you pay 5% towards your pension. I think that's relatively normal. And yeah, just leave it at that. Calculate. So your take-home pay will be £19,960. £19,960 is what you take home. Now let's have a look at your expenses. So probably you're working, you're gonna need to rent a place. You might splash out and get a beautiful fancy house or a flat, but that's not very wise considering the salary, so it needs to be relatively reasonable amount. So I would say actually £500 a month. It can be a room in a 2-bedroom flat, or it can be sort of a smaller studio flat potentially. Actually, we're renting 1-bedroom flat in Glasgow for £475 per month. So it's not easy to come by, but they do exist, and it's actually decent accommodation, decent area. Let's say £500 a month is accommodation. Food, £150 a month per person. I think that's reasonable. A lot of people spend even less. Transport, I mean, probably at that salary, you'll be maybe spending 60 quid a month. I think that's reasonable. Phone and internet, obviously you'll be paying maybe £25 for the phone bill, £25 for the internet, so £600 a year. Obviously all the bills that you need to pay for accommodation, 3,600, that's your council tax, electricity, all of that sort of stuff. So if that's the case, your total spend will be 12,720, and that means you're left with £7,240. I personally think that you can get into property quicker by being tight and by really being aggressive with your savings. However, you only live once, right? So you don't want to, it's really hard to be that strict. You're literally paying your bills and you can't have anything else. So I think realistically, you put £500 a year for treats. So that means every couple of months you can go and treat yourself and spend £100 on what you want to spend it on. And then travel's £1,000. So you maybe go on a holiday that costs you 500 quid twice a year, or maybe one bigger holiday once a year. I think that's something that, it's not over the top, but it's something that I think you want to try and get something for your money. You know, you're working, and every year of your life is important, so you want to get some enjoyment rather than just waiting and getting this financial freedom and really being scared about it all. So I think that's realistic. So you'll be left over with £5,740 per year. So in 2 years, it will be £11,480 if it's just yourself. If your partner is doing the same type of thing and a similar type of job, in 2 years you can actually save £22,000. So you would have to be strict, but you'll still be able to treat yourself a little bit. So surprising, right? I mean, the minimum salary feels like, it's minimum, so how can you save anything? But actually, if you're smart, you can do quite well with this. I remember I was working when I was less than 18, I was getting £3 something an hour. And when I was in Tesco's, I was getting £6 an hour, like £5.80 or something like that. So back then, that felt like good money to me. And I mean, I'm still relatively young, so that was only, I don't know, maybe 13 years ago. So yeah, minimum salary is actually decent, I would say, at this stage. Controversial, but it's just my opinion. So yourself, in 2 years you can save up 11 grand. You and your partner can save up almost 23 grand together. Okay, so that's just a potential high level scenario. What do you actually need? Can you buy a property with 10k? Can you buy it with 20k? How much do you actually need? So for that, I think we should look at the real world example. So let's go straight to Rightmove and see what we're working with here. So let's go to Glasgow, which is my usual area of interest. I would set the price no more than 60k, and then I would search. So there's 61 properties available. Some of it is going to be nonsense, shared ownership, parking spaces and stuff, but there will be some that are actually reasonable. So for example, I would put newest listed, because those are the ones that have been listed recently and you can try to analyze. So have a look. Let's just look at the first one for 60,000. Obviously, this is already a let opportunity, so it might work, it might not. This is land, so you have to build on it. That's expensive. This is land, you have to build on it. Again, expensive. You probably won't be able to afford it at this stage. This one, 60k. Let's just take that one and see if we can work with it. So it's in Rutherglen, which is not terrible. If you can have a look on the map, you can see that Rutherglen isn't really far away from the centre. I mean, I live in Easterhouse, which is all the way here, close to the fort. So, this area is actually closer to the centre. You have Glasgow Green, not too far away. So, location-wise, seems reasonable. EPC certificate is D, so the energy rating is D for that flat, so it's somewhere in the middle. So then what you want to do is look at minimum EPC rating for renting a flat in Scotland. So let's have a look. It needs to be E or higher, and I think it should be, it says C by 2025, so those are all like news that, they might move it to C. Must have a minimum rating of D by March 2025. So I think C is something that they want to implement, and D is more of a reality. So we are at a high D, 67. So it means to get to C, we only need a couple of points. I mean, EPC is a bit subjective and it can be done. Some little insulation can sometimes do the trick, and depending who assesses you and how they're taking the measurements and what they have, etc. Let's have a look at description. So we've got double glazing already, fantastic. Gas central heating, again, fantastic. That's big expenses that we don't need to do ourselves. Double bedroom, okay, all seems positive. Let's have a look at the place itself. So the house looks reasonable. There's shops downstairs. It looks relatively clean in here. As you walk in, you've got the same flooring throughout, but relatively neat. Decent sized living room, quite like that. Everything freshly painted, so actually not much work needed, some blinds, and the windows are actually nice, so quite impressed with that. Reasonable size bedroom. Kitchen a little bit dated, but nothing too horrible. I mean, you can definitely work with that. You need to check in here to see what's going on there to make sure if there's any repairs or small touch-ups needed, but apart from that, all good. Big windows, very bright. Okay, bathroom looks a bit dated, but you can yourself clean all of this. You know, you can take a knife and scrape all the mold and all the moisture away from that, get it resealed, make sure all that is in better condition. That can all be cleaned, or you can panel it or change it. I mean, that can be a relatively cheap fix. The shower looks a bit old, so again, you can change the shower for maybe £200 or somewhere in that region, and you can do sort of touch-ups. You can change the toilet seat, you know, you can get it to a condition that's reasonable. So the bathroom, although it looks not great, that can definitely be done without too many issues. And if you're struggling, you can always ask, you can send that picture to a builder and they'll be able to tell you roughly what can be done and what the options are. So yeah, in here looks reasonable, all good. Outside, relatively neat. Yeah, actually the house looks really good, I really like it. Some businesses downstairs. Okay, let's not spend ages going through it. Look, you've got 60k flat for it's 1 bedroom in a relatively decent area. So let's just take that one as an example. Say you want to buy this one, and let's just, for argument's sake, you can buy it at the asking price. So we found the flat. We then put an offer in, and we purchase it for £60,000. One of the things in the UK is if you have a rental property, you need to pay additional dwelling supplement. But if this is your first purchase, you've never owned a property before, then you don't need to pay it. So if it's your first one, you've just been renting, that's actually zero. Then to purchase the property, you're going to have a solicitor. A lot of solicitors are available. All of them are roughly the same price. The range is not massive, so I would put legal. That's a solicitor who will represent you, make sure you don't get scammed, make sure all the documents are right, make sure the seller is not hiding anything. I would say reasonable legal service conveyancing, £1,400, I would say. Agency fee. So for that one, that can vary quite a lot, but we will just look at who's selling. Slater Hogg, big estate agents, they charge the seller rather than the buyer. So in this case, it's going to be zero. For the purchase price of £60,000, you're going to get a mortgage. So you're going to need a mortgage deposit and a mortgage amount. Usually for a buy-to-let, rule of thumb is 75% loan to value, so the bank will give you 75% and you have to put 25% of your own money. And the reason for that is because the bank needs to have a bit of a buffer. If the worst comes to worst and actually this flat depreciates in value, it's not worth as much, they have that 25% buffer where it has to depreciate a lot for them to lose money. So they are being extremely safe with those investments. The property very rarely depreciates, especially in the UK, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But anyways, we're going to have the purchase price times by 25%. That's going to be the deposit. And the actual mortgage is going to be the purchase price times by 75%, which is going to be the amount. So with that in mind, how much money do you actually need to buy this property? So just to buy it, you're going to have to pay the legal straight away. Well, as the work is being done, you're going to have to pay the deposit pretty much straight away. Also those two, but they're zero in your case. If you and your partner have the minimum wage job, and in 2 years you can save 23,000, so that's more than enough to cover this. But actually, if you just work yourself, I've calculated it for 2 years. Let's check 3 years. So we take that money that's left over, times that by 3, £17,220. So you can actually work for 3 years, be very strict, still treat yourself a little bit, but be very strict with yourself, save up that money, and you can actually make that purchase. There are clever ways of not doing it, of not saving money. You can be taking bridging, taking family, getting families, funding, all sorts of stuff. But I think realistically, it's better to have that money saved and then put that into the property. Because once you start borrowing, taking it from here and there, you then have to manage the interest, the fees, and it's not easy, you know. So at the start, I would really try to have a bit of money to really invest. Okay, so now you have bought this flat. Congratulations. You are now the proud owner of this property in Rutherglen. It's 1 bedroom. You've got the keys right there. You have it. All is good. So say you want to now rent it out. I would argue that yes, if you are renting yourself, buying a buy-to-let and having that as an investment but still renting is maybe not a great idea. But let's just imagine you can maybe move in with your parents, you can do something to really change your life and make those good decisions. So now you have this property, it's an investment property. How do you make money from it? The most common way of doing it is to rent it. So you have invested this much money, you have the flat. How do you rent it? What do you even do? Well, I can tell you firstly is you need compliance. What that means is that you need to make sure this property is in a rentable state. So it's probably in a rentable state because you've inspected it and all is good, but you need a gas safety certificate. So you need somebody to come check the boiler, make sure it's all safe. You need the same for electricity, Legionella for the water. There's maybe some other ones, but those are the main ones. So I would say gas, about £70 a year for the certificate, electricity and PAT, £150, Legionella and others, £100. I would also spend £500 just getting a bit of paint here and there, touching things up, and you're not doing a full refurb, but you're just doing bits and pieces just to make the flat a bit nicer. It's always good. You will feel good because it's your property and you've made it a little bit nicer without doing a refurb. And also the tenants will feel good because you have made it slightly better for them. So you do the compliance, you get your certificates, you're good to go now. Or are you? Next, what you need to do is landlord registration. So you need to then tell your council, I own this property, the mortgage allows me to rent it. So what I want to do is rent it out. So you register yourself as a landlord with the council, usually pay a set fee, and they allow you to be able to rent out that property. It sounds a bit complicated, but it's an easy process. The fee varies. It's not a huge amount. I would say maybe £80 would cover that for several years. So you've done that. You then need to allow a bit of money for insurance because you as a landlord has to insure that property. I would say for a flat like that, £200. Let's just say insurance can go up quite a bit. Let's say £250. So you have to pay that up front as well. And then also remember that there might be a few weeks when you're using electricity, using the gas, and using the property, but it's not rented yet. It might be a few weeks or a few months. So allow a bit of money just to pay for any of those bills. It might not be a lot, but just have a bit of money sitting there just in case. I would say just put £300 aside for that. So now, money needed is what you've already spent, which is that much to buy it, and then you spend this much to make you compliant. You've done the landlord registration, you bought the insurance, you've got a bit of money sitting there for any bills that will come your way after it's rented, and this is the total. So as you can see, pretty much in 3 years of working solo, you can afford that. It's a bit tight, but you can actually buy that. You can be the proud owner of that beautiful flat. So now you have bought the flat, you have the keys for it, all is good, you've made it compliant, you've insured it, all is good to go, it's ready. How do you get it? How do you get it rented out? And how much can you even get for it? So let's have a look. Ideally you would do this research before you bought it obviously, but let me just show you how to do it. So this property is on Greenbank Street in Rutherglen. So just go to the same Google, put that in, check the postcode, G73 1LS, copy that postcode, go into Rightmove, let's say Rightmove, paste the postcode in, put to rent, include let agreed properties, maximum 1 bedroom, which is what your flat is, search for it. So currently there is no properties that have been rented exactly in this postcode. That's not great because it doesn't tell you very much. So then just expand your radius around where you are. So let's have a look at what's around. Well, look at that. Green Hill Road, which is the same road that you're buying. This one is Greenbank Street. This one is Green Hill Road. Okay, but as you can see, it's within not a huge radius. We have somebody trying to rent their flat for £595 per calendar month, and then someone else trying to rent out a flat for £795. I mean, this one looks a bit sort of cozy and smaller and maybe a bit different. I would say this one looks more similar to what you have. Open it up and have a look at the pictures. Have they done something incredible? Well, also looks relatively white, even a little bit identical to what you have. Nothing fancy. Dated kitchen, oldish boiler. Nothing special as such. The bathroom again, older bathroom, but they've just upgraded it tiny bit. They've put the minimum amount of money in. So now you know that nearby, within a quarter mile, there's a property being sold for being rented for £595 per calendar month. So that's probably the region that you'll be looking at as well. I mean, they might reduce it, but it's only been added yesterday, so it will probably be rented out. Rent expected £595 times that by 12. £7,140 a year. And what is your mortgage going to be? Again, quite easy to check. All you have to do is put mortgage calculator. So you have borrowed £45,000, 25 years. Let's say you go for interest only to make it more efficient, more tax efficient. At the interest rate of 5%, you're looking at £188 a month. So mortgage payment is that, sorry, £188 a month, times that by 12 months. This is your mortgage payment. So your expected rent is this much. Your mortgage payment is significantly less, as you can see. So your profit could be this minus this, £4,884. Profit monthly, divide that by 12, £407 a month. So this particular flat, if everything's done right, can potentially make you £407 a month. You have to be careful. There is more compliance. Well, the compliance needs to be done every year, so next year you'll have the same expenses again. There might be some repair that's needed, so it's not always going to be as great as this. You need to have a bit of a reserve for repairs, but that's not bad. Minimum salary, and you've managed to secure your first property in a decent area, 1 bedroom. Go through all of the things that need to be done, such as compliance, insurance, etc., and then end up with £407 a month. And you've put in £17,850, and now you're getting £407 a month from that. So it's a very reasonable return if you look at it that way. I think another video tells you that returns can be subjective, but that's the overall picture. Now, the only thing I haven't talked about is how to rent it. So for that, I will just insert a note and put in the key stuff. So to rent it, you have option 1 is rent it yourself. What that means is that you use websites such as OpenRent, Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace. You then advertise your flat and you say, I want to rent this flat. Those are the pictures, those are the specifications. I want $595 per month. People then reach out to you and tell you, I'm interested. You arrange some viewings. The person that likes it, the people that like it and you like them and things work. But you have to be careful not to discriminate against anyone, obviously. You then take a deposit from them. You can do the reference in checks. You need to make sure the deposit goes through the correct deposit scheme. But you can take the deposit from them, go through the referencing process. If everything goes well, then you can move them in. So you advertise, viewings, referencing. For that, I would just Google it. There's loads of agencies that will you pay them a set fee. It can be like £30, £20, and they will create a form that they will send to the potential tenant. The tenant will put all information in, payslips, name, address, history, etc. And then they will do all the checks and then give you a report and say, look, this is the people, those are the credit scores, no criminal convictions, blah, blah, blah. So you can do the reference in that way. It's relatively easy. You then do the contract. Make sure you use an approved contract within your part of the country, whether it's England or Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland. And for that, you can buy a contract, like a template of a contract for 5-10 quid, quite easy. Change, put all the right names, etc. Make sure it's all good, and get that signed by yourself and your future tenants. That will include the rent, the deposit, everything else. Then you need to do inventory. So that's where you go into the flat, take pictures of everything, just so that if they ruin anything in the end of the tenancy, you can take money from their deposit through the deposit scheme. So again, very important to do that. And then that's it, rented. You just have to keep an eye on it if anything goes wrong. Second approach is to use an agency. So they remove all the hassle from you. What you do is you sign with them. They take the property on, they will do the pictures, they will advertise it, they will find the tenant, they will communicate with you. You approve the tenant, make sure you're happy with them. They will do the inventory, they will do the contract, they will do signatures, they will get it all rented for you. So if you want a more hands-off approach, that's the way to do it. And agencies charge sort of 8 to 12% typically for the full management service. So in your case, you are renting it for $7,140. So about 10% of that can be given to the agency, so about £714 a year. And with that, they will manage it for you. So those are the two options. So yeah, a bit of an in-depth video, a lot to talk about. I hope it made sense. Some of it was kind of me doing it live, so it wasn't as boom, straight to the point as it could have been, but it just shows you that even on a minimum salary, whether it's yourself, in 3 years, you can potentially have enough money to get a decent property that will give you a good enough return. Or as a couple, in less than 2 years, you can save up enough to have that same property bought, and then having that cash flow and having that start to your business. So I think that's fantastic. And then once you've done that, once you've been through all of those steps, you will learn a ton of stuff. So then every property after that will get easier and easier. There's also a way of buying it through limited company. I'll do that separately. There's some differences, advantages and disadvantages. But for now, hopefully this just shows you real analysis of how much you can make, how much you can save, a real property that I've just found now, how much it can be rented for, what needs to be done, and how it can all work. So for me, it was really interesting to do this analysis. I hope it was the same for you. I'm going to upload the spreadsheet as always for you to look at if you want to, and any questions, let me know. But it was fun, and I'm looking forward to the next video.